Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast. We had quite an interesting previous week with very good data out of the US. Unemployment rate and NFP were way better than expected, which led to this bullish close of the week. We already saw during the week that the dollar gained momentum, and then we saw that's very often the case. So we approach an area of interest just before the release of this bigger data, where then price could go into both ways. Initially, we were looking for an expansion here, or then the next leg down. However, the data on Friday was so good, it moved price through this area of interest, which we were looking at the previous few weeks, and closed outside. So, which then led to a bullish week. So in this regard, at the moment, I'm looking for the bullish momentum in the dollar to continue for the next leg higher, somewhere in this area or even potentially into this area. So that means going down to the lower time frame. Actually, the 4-hour is good enough. As long as price remains above this structure here, preferably even just retesting the low here in form of some bullish continuation pattern, we can then short the other dollar related pairs. So we can see it clearer on the other dollar pairs. We have a lot of dollar related pairs in the watch list for the coming week, since the positioning of the DXY is very good at the moment. So we look into Euro US dollar. Also here we start on the weekly. We can see that we are coming from an area of interest. Actually, we were looking at that before already. We had this high. We still have a gap towards this more significant value area here to the left. However, we tapped into it like 2 times into the last previous high here and failed to continue higher. So it's a very big breakout here, and then even closed below this swing low here. Like it's a short-term swing low. We see it clearer here on the daily. We can see that we even tapped in the previous high into the previous high like 1, 2, 3 times and failed to continue. So instead we gained momentum to the downside, and with the dollar positioning, the DXY positioning at the moment, we are definitely looking for shorts in Euro US dollar. I'm going down to the 1-hour time frame for a clearer picture. Let me shortly delete this here. So I'm looking for some form of bearish continuation here, preferably retesting this previous low here. So if we get a 1, 2, 3 bear flag structure into this low, I'm definitely going to short from this area. Moving on to Australian dollar, US dollar, a very similar picture like all the dollar related pairs. We have here also, we are coming from an area of interest. We have the gap here, or we left the gap previously. We closed the gap 2 weeks ago, and then last week we fully retraced with the bearish engulfing candle. So we are in a very nice bearish momentum at the moment. Going down to the daily, we see here the same, very similar. We moved through this previous small swing low and closed almost full body outside the structure basically. So there is a shift in momentum. I'm going down to the 1-hour and I'm looking for exactly the same structure as in Euro US dollar. I preferably would like to see a retest of this previous low here in form of some bear flag structure to enter in this area for a continuation short. New Zealand dollar, same picture. However, the higher time frame looks good. It's just a bit stronger than the Australian dollar US dollar. So we see we have a very impulsive candle. They tend to retrace a bit more. So but overall in the picture we had this 1, 2, 3 expanding into the previous high. We tapped into this area, sold off aggressively. So we have everything for a continuation short. Going down to the 1-hour, we are here on a low, we are sitting here on a very small area of interest. We have the more significant value area down here, and the structure is building just on top of this area. So if it's a momentum run, we will see. Price will give us a clue early next week. If it's a momentum run, then we will see some form of internal 1, 2, 3 into this small area here. It's a small liquidity area then for a short. I would entertain that. This would be end of Asia session maybe, or going into London session. However, on the higher time frame, with this very, very impulsive bearish candle, I would not be surprised if price would retrace a bit further up somewhere in this area before we then see some form of bear pattern here to continue the short. So this is a bit more tricky to trade, but overall I'm still very, very bearish on this pair as well. Moving on to US dollar, Canadian dollar, that looks a bit different, of course, because we are overall biased bullish for the dollar. So we see that we had some, I mean, there's a lot of areas of interest here to the left. We tapped into it, we left a low here, so this is more significant. We retested that 2 weeks ago, and last week we printed a very nice bullish candle. So this is in line with the overall bias going down to the 1 hour directly. Initially, a few weeks ago, we were looking at this for a liquidity point and then a sell-off. We actually got that here. Then we built the second base here. We have now potential expanding structure here with 2 bases, 1, 2, 3, somewhere in this area, which would line up with this liquidity point here. And the positioning at the moment with the dollar strength, even Canadian dollar is still getting stronger, it seems, towards against the other pairs. I'm still looking for price to finish the last leg here before then potentially changing my bias when price reaching this area or even this area, but only to the last previous small high here. There's enough room for a medium short-term long trade in US dollar Canadian. US dollar Swiss francs. So US dollar Swiss francs, actually US dollar changed direction somewhere in no man's land here. We were initially hoping for price to tap into the previous low here. We did not get that. However, if we look on the lower time frame, on the daily time frame, we see that price had multiple chances to actually sell off into this area. It didn't. So instead of, it just started to stall in that area and potentially building up some volume, and then finally broke out on Friday out of this whole structure and closed outside. Unfortunately, a bit on a wick, but still overall with the bullish dollar momentum, I'm looking for a long in that area going down to the 1 hour time frame. Of course, the initial liquidity area here, which was the potential start for the last leg down, is now my base for a long. And then into the next more significant high towards the left here, I'm looking for a bull flag continuation outside this whole volume accumulation in form of a 1, 2, 3 or 2 touch structure to finish the last leg higher. Euro Australian dollar, on the weekly time frame, we can see that we discussed this pair multiple times. We had this very, very strong wick, which was the initial start of the move down. So we still have this smaller area of interest, or a smaller value area here, and then the more significant one here. And we can see that price failed to tap into this area. Yes, we ended up on a very strong wick. However, it's still a bearish candle. And what we know is, if price is wicking towards an area and ending on a wick, very often we have this wick fill to finish the move basically before changing direction or more volume accumulation for the next leg down. It would be different if price would have wicked through this area and then end up on a wick. So then I would probably change my bias and look for a long. However, we left a gap even, and we only wicked towards it, so I'm more inclined to look for a continuation short. Going down to the 1 hour, we see we have some areas of interest which are interesting for a potential entry short. We can still, I'm looking for retesting of this area here. That's a small structure sold off. We retested it here slightly with this expanding, and now price is creeping back up. So I'm looking now for price to reach this area again and then impulsively break down, give me some form of bear flag continuation for a potential short entry. Euro New Zealand dollar looks very, very, very similar than Euro Australian dollar. However, Australian dollar has a slightly better, higher time frame picture, because the Euro New Zealand dollar we see here, we ended on a very bullish week actually, and we retraced more than 50% of the previous bearish week. So we are kind of in a bullish momentum. However, we still have room left to the downside. And when we look here again on the higher time frame, we are on the weekly. We are coming from an area of interest here. We sold off aggressively. We have this expanding structure into this area. So there is no reason for price to actually come up in this area again. And we can also see that price did that multiple times before. We had these two very strong bearish weeks in a row. Then we have a very, very strong bullish momentum candle, which seemed at the time that the overall momentum is changing. However, it didn't. It just price rolled over again and then printed again another very, very bearish week. And price is doing the same again. So as long as I don't get a clear confirmation on the lower time frame, I'm still looking for price to end the last leg into this area here for a short in that regard. So going down to the 1 hour time frame, we can clearly see we had this liquidity area here. Price then creeped back up, so in form of we can say like maybe a V shape, and then it failed to aggressively sell off. We had some nice structures in here. Instead, it just started to tickle down. Then we get some momentum. We left the liquidity point here, and we are now in the same area. Same, very, very same situation than before. So price then built up some volume here and had an impulsive move into this area. So we are now stalling in this area here. So of course, if price is then now starting to form a nice full flag continuation, I would change my bias for a long, but overall, I'm expecting price to break back below into this area and then form some form of bear flag continuation to enter a short trade. So the short bias is clearly my preferred way to go on this pair. Moving on to Euro Canadian dollar. Euro Canadian dollar again is also a very, very interesting one. We had this pair on watch a few times already for a continuation long. However, at the moment it seems that Canadian dollar overall is getting a slightly stronger, might also be lifted up by an expected hike in price in the oil price. So even though it looks that there is still a potential long play, I'm looking for a short as it stands right now. Going down to the 4 hour time frame, I left the overall 4 hour structure in here. So we can see that initially we were looking for the first leg 1, then we had 1, 2, 3 for a continuation pattern long. However, with the overall bias, it's actually quite easy to decide. We don't entertain a short in here. So if we tap back into this area in form of a structure, then I would entertain here a short. It has to be a more weighted time frame. That's why I added here a H4 entry, so I will not enter anything on a 1 hour or 15-minute time frame. However, if price is breaking below here, rolling over here and giving me some form of bear flag continuation here, okay, I'm entering further down, and it's even more confirmed that the long play will not work out. And if price really is moving early next week above this high here and then giving me a bull flag continuation, yeah, of course I will change my bias, and it would still make sense in the overall picture, in the overall price action picture. But however, it would not really align with my overall fundamental bias right now. Moving on to Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. Again, on the weekly, we see here again a nice change in momentum. We don't have any significant area here to the left. This one is way too far away right now for to even consider, but we have this previous swing high, which we closed outside the week before, and now have a full retrace, closing almost full body. So we made a new high, actually ended on a wick and closed almost full body below the previous week here. So definitely only looking for continuation play short here, going down to the 1 hour. We do have room to go just to the next more significant area of interest. We also have some potential areas to enter a short trade. We still did not retest the previous structure here, this low. We have a small liquidity area here, so if it's a momentum play early next week, we will see it quite early, and we will have a more flat continuation here, which is then okay to enter for a short. However, preferably we would retest this previous low here and then enter in this area short. But market will show its hand most likely in the first few days of the next week. So then lastly, we have Canadian dollar yen. I'm a bit torn between the yen pairs. I don't really want to trade them right now because I don't really want to trade against the yen. However, the price action looks not too bad on Canadian dollar yen, and having one yen pair on watch helps to then, if we see a lot of movement in the yen pairs and we have one on watch, we can then still add in the other yen pairs in case there is something significant going on. So here, on the higher time frame, again on the weekly, we see we are in a bullish momentum run now, and I'm looking for a continuation long into the next more significant areas of interest, which is this small consolidation here, which was actually the only consolidation here on this impulsive run down. So price failed to sell and make new lows here. We had a small area of interest here, which we almost reached and then sold off, but did not make a new high, and we are now creeping up. We are ending the week outside these two highs here, and we have nothing to the left to worry right now. So as long as price remains outside the structure here, I'm looking for a long. So if I get a bull flag continuation in this area, even retesting here, I'm looking for a long to finish the last leg, at least into the more significant area of volume into these highs here. Okay, that's it for the week. That's my watch list. And yeah, thanks for watching and see you next week. Bye-bye.